Good evening, folks, ladies, gentlemen. Hope you are all doing well. It is the day before the 2022 NHL Draft, which means we gotta prepare because I don't know about you guys. I haven't done a lot of research. Now, if you watch Canucks After Dark last night, you will have heard me say, "Oh, I'm going to do research tomorrow," and I did. Like an hour of research, and that's not enough. There's the problem with this Vancouver Canucks hockey team picking at 15, which is where they're going to be picking tomorrow, unless something crazy happens, is that there's too many options, right? But today we're going to go through them, and I think collectively, as a group, we are going to get overly attached to some players and then be very upset when the Canucks don't end up picking them tomorrow because they have some other draft board other than what we've put together. So our plan for today, we're going to get to the draft in a little bit, because the biggest, most important part of the draft, basically tomorrow, is going to be JT Miller and what happens with him in general, right? Do the Canucks get a move done? Do they get him traded off to some other team and get a big haul and maybe move up in the draft, or collect a bunch of picks? So we've got a bunch of stuff, a bunch of news that sort of dropped today, contract extension potential as well. We're going to talk about some membership stuff later on. I'm going to gift a few, so we'll get to that later, now that that's a feature, and I haven't streamed since April, I don't think, since the last Canucks game, so it's good to have you guys here. Then we'll do Q&A, the old normal stuff, and that should take us to around 9 o'clock. We'll take about an hour here tonight, and then tomorrow, 4 p.m., right when the draft starts, there's going to be like 20 minutes of preamble, maybe 30 minutes of preamble at the draft tomorrow. So we'll just hang out from basically 4 until that ends, and then we'll jump into draft stuff. So make sure you're subscribed if you aren't, but I'm sure most of you that are here at this point are subscribed anyways. Let's kill the music. Kill the music. It's over. All right. Let's start off with the JT Miller stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see how I can set this up real nice, real well done, because there was a lot of stuff that dropped today. I've got basically 7 or 8 links open that we're going to go through and just sort of talk JT Miller for a little bit. But I guess, let's get settled here. We have Adam saying hello. Hello, Adam. I want to move this chat window over a little bit so it's a little more centered between the things. I think that's good. Draft is tomorrow. That is correct. Quattrob saying something can happen to Garland too. That is definitely a very good point. I think that's, maybe less crucial and obviously less pressing with the whole JT Miller being an unrestricted free agent next season. And the Canucks needing to have something done ASAP. So I will see there. Vince Terrence saying greetings from Toronto. Hello. Hello, from Vancouver. King RJ saying apparently Miller's values and highs we're expecting. We'll get to that. 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 I've got links. I've got receipts from everything that happened today, and I'm going to just search JT Miller and pick up a couple more. See if there's anything that I didn't miss. All right. Let's just start from the top with what happened regarding JT Miller news all day today. All right. Let's see if this button works. I would say we did a pretty good job there. Let me just hit this button and we're feeling good. All right, let's zoom this in and let's read some tweets, shall we? Let's talk about what transpired throughout the day. This is about 12 hours ago. This is 8:17 a.m. this morning. Darren Dreger, I hate having Twitter notifications on for anybody, but I've got them all on right now. I've got Darren Dreger going. I got JPat. I got Rick Dollywall. I got Friedman, just to make sure that we don't miss anything in case maybe something happens while we're here, right? Although it is 11 p.m. in Montreal. GMs are probably getting some rest at this point. But let's start with this one. So Darren Dreger saying the JT Miller watch is full on in Montreal. Now, first thing that clicked to my mind was the Canadiens are in on JT Miller, but no. All the GMs are in Montreal. That makes way more sense. Understandably, Vancouver's ask remains high, but the interest in the talent forward is very strong. A developing story we're watching closely. So this means nothing, right? This is just basically preamble leading into the draft saying, hey, we're watching for something to happen here. And it's like, yeah, of course you are. It's the most important. It's the most, basically the biggest piece that is likely to get moved tomorrow. Anyway, so we'll basically skip over this one and go to here. And I don't have the Twitter link up, but Jeff Merrick, paraphrase, says, I think JT Miller ends up going to the Rangers with Kakko as the centerpiece of the return on Sirius XM this morning. So let's take a second and let's talk about Kaapo Kakko. Let's pull up the old Hockey DB and take a quick look. And I want your guys' thoughts here. And I'm going to put a poll in right off the bat. Would you be interested in Kaapo Kakko? Yes, no, maybe so. Poll is live, so you guys can answer that there. So let's take a look here. So drafted in 2019, second overall, right after Jack Hughes, right? This was a pretty big draft. And he hasn't clicked yet, right? We're looking at 23 points in 66 games in his rookie season right after being drafted. That's a pretty good rookie season. Like, generally, coming in first as an 18-year-old in the NHL, if you're putting up, a third of a point per game or so, you're doing okay. The following year, though, really no progression, right? It's basically the same amount of goals, way less assists, 17 points in 48 games, almost the same points per game percentage, right? About a point every 3 games. And this last year, slightly better, 18 points in 43 games. So we're not seeing that skyward trajectory that people were hoping from Kakko. Poll coming in here, 24 votes so far, 42% saying you would be interested, 58% saying you would not be interested, which is very interesting to me. I'm in tough a little bit on this one. I mean, we look at this draft, right? This draft wasn't there weren't a lot of home runs here, right? Jack Hughes has been very good, right? He was fantastic this last year. So, a rough start and then he took off a bit. But no one else on here. I mean, Trevor Zegras is great, right? Vasily Podkolzin was 10th overall in that draft. There's some other names in here, Caulfield and Boldy, but for the most part, it's a young draft because keep in mind, this guy's 21 years old and he's going to be for the majority of next season, right? You have a player who could skyrocket, right? This would be sort of a decently high risk, high reward pick where you could take a guy and maybe he ends up being, a 60-point guy in the future. Maybe not. Maybe he ends up being a 35-point guy his whole career, and then it would be not an ideal trade. So, but could also be a decent buy low candidate for a guy who was, very highly touted going into that 2019 draft. All right, let's go to our next tweet that we had. Frank Saravalli, hearing the Canucks are meeting with JT Miller's camp in Montreal. Two sides remain far apart on parameters of a potential contract extension. And there's more tweets going into this, so I think I'm just going to jump ahead with Harm and Dial at 12:30 today, so about 8 hours ago, 7.5 hours ago, saying Patrick Allvin did not sound optimistic about the club's chances of nailing down contract extension parameters with JT Miller before tomorrow's draft, which leans trade, right? The Canucks technically... And this, I didn't even realize this tweet. Basically saying the same thing. Harman saying the draft, of course, is not a hard deadline. The Canucks don't have to make a decision on Miller one way or the other ahead of it. But the draft might not be the hard deadline. But the hard deadline's in a couple weeks, right? JT Miller is extension eligible as of July 13th. Basically the start of the new league year when the start of free agency kicks in. So the Canucks would be able to extend JT Miller technically July 13th. They could get things like agreed to now, and then just it would be a formality. So that's one option. But in this case, it's risky to go past tomorrow because the Canucks lose a lot of leverage once we pass basically the first 15 picks of the draft, right? Once the Canucks have made their draft pick tomorrow, lots of that JT Miller leverage, in my mind at least, flies out the window because you now have a player who is a UFA next year. You have teams that don't have draft picks until next year, right? So any draft picks are a year out now. And the problem is, you could say, okay, well, they could keep him until the trade deadline. What if JT Miller has 40 points by the time the trade deadline comes around, right? We go from a guy who puts up 99 points and is worth a ton to a guy who maybe has 45 points at the trade deadline and is maybe worth a single first-round pick at that point. So now is the perfect sell high time for them. So we'll see what happens. This page doesn't exist because this was, I just opened them all, but this was Dan Riccio's tweet where he had said the Canucks had tabled an 8-year extension offer for JT Miller. And that was because David Pagnotta on Sportsnet 650 said the wrong thing. So they tweeted out the wrong thing because of it. Basically, this was a few hours ago on JT Miller. Crazy day here in Montreal. I went on Sportsnet 650 with Dan Riccio and Sadiar Shah, and I mixed up player offers all on this one. It's a 6-year offer, not 8, from Vancouver for Miller. 6-year offer. So let's pull up JT Miller, and let's take a look at his hockey DB, as we do. JT Miller's 29 years old. Born March 14th, 1993. A 6-year extension, keep in mind, would not kick in this season. It would kick in after this season, right? So we would be talking about a player who is 30 years old at the time of this extension kicking in, and you go 6 years from there until his 35 to 36-year-old seasons. There's a lot of risk there. Now, there are players who beat those odds, right? The obvious one at this point is Joe Pavelski, right? Joe Pavelski's 37 years old, basically a year after when JT Miller's new contract would end. He's just been excellent, except for, barring 2019, 2020. He has been absolutely fantastic, right? Point a game last year at the age of 37, just under a point a game the year before. There are outliers. And if the Canucks can sign JT Miller for 6 years and he ends up doing this, fine by me. There's a lot of risk there, though, because if he doesn't turn out like this, let's say he turns out like another player that we might know fairly well. That's Louis Eriksson. The Canucks signed Louis Eriksson to that 6x6 deal in the summer of 2016 when Louis Eriksson was just turning 31 years old. So 1 year older than JT Miller, coming off of the best season or one of the best seasons of his recent years, 63 points in 82 games. And then what happened, right? 24 points, 23 points, 29 points. He didn't hit 100 points with the Vancouver Canucks, I don't think. Actually, maybe he did, just barely. Because 19 were with the Coyotes. Yeah, he didn't hit 100 points with the Vancouver Canucks in his career. So that's the risk you run, right? Or you could trade him. You could put that $5.25 million into whether it's a contract extension for Bo Horvat, whether it is going out trying to make a splash in free agency, especially if you can get rid of maybe Tyler Myers, then you have a good chunk of change to go after somebody. Clay would be advocating for Philip Forsberg because he loves Philip Forsberg a lot. And then you get a bunch of assets and a pretty decent player that you might slightly overpay for in free agency. So the question is, do you want to overpay for JT Miller and get nothing else? Or do you want to trade JT Miller for a bunch of stuff and then go overpay someone else in free agency? And to me, that just seems like the better option, right? That's what I do in NHL. And obviously that is a perfect representation of the real world where I can go into my NHL franchise and everyone who's on an expiring deal, you just trade them for a bunch of first round picks. You go sign different guys in free agency that fill that role and you're fine, right? Just do the same thing. Obviously not that easy, but that's basically the scenario that we're in around JT Miller. All right. So that's, I guess let's take a few minutes. If you guys have any sort of JT Miller related things that we can talk about. Otherwise, we can start talking draft. And I guess, we'll actually, I do have this Athletic article that I probably can't show you because technically it's behind a paywall. So it would just kind of be piracy for me to show the article or read the article. But I do have this article that I want to discuss and sort of react to a little bit here. So let's talk about, I think this Harman Dial put this out yesterday. Basically, what teams would be interested in JT Miller? And he had 9 of them. Keep in mind, that's a third of the NHL, basically. Kodiak Gem just asking straight up, is JT Miller, that's the wrong one. Is JT Miller dealt? No, still the wrong one. Is JT Miller dealt within the next 48 hours? I don't know. I'm like 70-30 on yes. The thing is, though, we did hear a little bit today that, offers might have been a little lower than the Canucks were expecting. But again, I think this is going to be the time of highest value for JT Miller. If that previous trade deadline wasn't, I think this draft day is, especially, I don't believe it, but if the New Jersey Devils' second overall pick is in play, then yeah, this is probably your best time to make that move. So we'll see. I'm hoping something happens, because man, it will be an exciting stream tomorrow if JT Miller does get moved. That is for sure. Gus saying, do you think JT Miller for a top 5 pick straight up would be enough? Well, it depends on who you have in your top 5, right? And I'm going to give you a little tease of what I've thrown together here. This is literally just stolen directly from Habs Eye on the Prize, but I copied all of it and put it into Excel where I could actually look at the data and not have to scroll side to side. So if you say top 5 pick, would a top 5 pick be enough? Top 5 pick, you're ending up with one of these 5 names, right? Shane Wright, Logan Cooley, Jaroslav Slavkovsky, David Juracek, and Simon Nemec. And all of these are sort of up in the air, right? And that's sort of advertised by this range column, which you can't fully see because my head's covering it. But this range basically says, what was the highest rank and the lowest rank between like all the rankings they looked at. A guy like Simon Nemec, his best ranking was 2, his worst ranking was 9, right? The difference there is 7. So there's a big swing, right? These guys down here, 6th, 7th, 8th, some of these guys were ranked 3rd overall. Brad Lambert, there was one ranking that had him 3rd. There was also another ranking that had him 42nd. So does a top 5 pick get it done? It depends when that trade happens. Let's say we're talking 4th or 5th overall. If that trade happens before the draft and it's for 4th or 5th overall, I think maybe not. If it happens right before that pick is made and there's someone that the Canucks liked at 2 or 3 that fell to 4, let's say, Slavkovsky drops from, 1 to 3 down to 4, and the Canucks can swoop in and take that 4th pick, that also would make it probably less likely that the pick gets traded to the Canucks, though, but the whole deal there. So is that enough? It really depends. It really depends on whether or not the Canucks really like a guy there. But, it definitely could. It definitely could. All right. Let's, Coach Rob asking how much money the 6-year deal is. We don't know. We have no idea. The Canucks are pretty tight on leaks now. But, you can imagine it was probably pretty high, right? Maybe $8 million a year, maybe more. Who knows, right? We're all just guessing at this point if no information's coming out about the team. All right, what else do we have here? Let me see if I can pull this chat up a little bit better. Justin, how would you react if the Canucks end up extending Miller? This is I would have a really mixed reaction. I would prefer them to trade JT Miller at this point in time. Like, genuinely, I would prefer if they traded him. If they somehow got a pretty decent deal, let's say it was like 6 by $6.5 million, which I don't think is possible. I think it would be more like 7.5, 8, maybe more. Then I'm on board. Because then it means you have to try to contend soon, right? Because that's a deal that probably won't be great towards the latter half. So you got to start going now. I don't think I'll be too. I think it'll be one of those things. Be like, all right, that's the way they went. We're still going to keep trusting this management regime until something goes disastrously wrong, which nothing has yet. We haven't had a Jim Benning type maneuver yet. like last year's draft. That hasn't happened yet, so we'll see. RJ saying that he doesn't think Miller's return is going to be that fantastic. That's fair. Trevor saying Owen Pickering or Connor Geekie, both still likely there at 15. Who are you taking? Now, here's the thing. Owen Pickering on this list, that this sort of compiled list from everybody, is at 23rd, and Connor Geekie's at 18. So I'm of the mind of, I don't know if those are either guys I want to go after. Connor Geekie's best ranking was 8. Pickering's best was 13. So Pickering is not really one I want to go down, especially because Pickering's worst ranking was 53 from all these sources. So in my mind, big people scare me when it comes to the draft and just hockey in general. GMs really have this affinity for players who are big, right? Tyler Myers being the prime example. Big guy, not the best, is going to get paid because he is big. And sure, being like everything else equal, being big is an asset, right? It makes a difference. But I still think size is very heavily valued. And as a defenseman, sure, that's fairly important. It's not the be all end all, right? Quinn Hughes is a great defenseman. He's not huge. But from what I've heard about Pickering, he's sort of a very safe defensive pick. That's like sort of a middling floor, but not a very high ceiling. And to me, that doesn't excite me. I feel like you got to be taking shots. Like you have to have a guy who you think is actually going to, like, could be a star potentially. And I think that's what you have to go for, right? Names like Marco Kasper come to mind, where some people think he's going to be an absolute stud, and some people think he's not going to play more than 10 NHL games, right? These just dramatic swings in ideology. That's the kind of thing I like to go for, where if they see something that no one else does, maybe they can take it, but it's also, of course, much more risky. What else do we got? Ryan is asking, could you see the Canucks add the 15th overall pick in a trade? For example, 15th and Miller 50% retained for like 2nd and Ty Smith. What is Ty Smith up to? Has he been good? It's not a name that excites me all that much. He's a defenseman who has a minus 26 last year. Obviously, plus minus is not the be all end all. It just doesn't excite me that much, right? I want excitement. And I think moving up 13 spots is a lot different than just adding a second round pick, because I think at 15, there's going to be some players that drop, and there's going to be a real potential to maybe grab a bit of a steal at 15. 15 is an interesting place to be, where if the draft goes exactly as predicted, 15 is not great, but there's always going to be a couple names that fall that might get interesting. Miller for Jack Hughes 1-for-1. Yeah, that's not going to happen. All right, let's, so I'm just going to read, from this article, basically what teams might be interested in JT Miller and why. Credit to Harman Dial and The Athletic, but I'm not really plagiarizing it. I'm just going to sort of read some snippets. The Rangers are sort of the number one right now. That's been the name that's obviously was floated a lot around the trade deadline. And it's being floated a lot now, right? Guys like, Kako, for example. But the main snippet that I see here, if it depends on what team, the team making the offer is going to have a big impact on what that offer is, right? If we're talking about a team that is trying to win a Stanley Cup this year and then is not going to extend JT Miller, that's going to have a lot less value compared to a team that is looking to bring him in and then sign him to a 7-year deal or something along those lines. So that's sort of that's the iffy part, right? New Jersey's one that I don't get, but it's a name that keeps coming around, right? They've said, Fitzgerald, Tom Fitzgerald, GM of the Devils, has said they're open to moving the 2nd round pick, which to me seems a little crazy. 2nd overall pick. Jesper Bratt's a name that's floated, but I have zero. There's no chance Jesper Bratt gets moved. We're talking about a point per game player who's 23 years old. There's just no way that happens unless it was like Miller and 15 for Bratt. And at that point, I'm not loving it. So, I don't know. The Devils aren't good enough right now, though, right? Like, the Devils are bad. There's a reason they have the second overall pick. And it's not because they were excellent last year. So do they really want to go out and pay a bunch for JT Miller, who might be on the decline by the time they're back in the mix again? See the Vancouver Canucks in that case? Probably not. He's got Carolina mentioned, Washington, Pittsburgh, Boston, Nashville, Islanders, and the Flyers. Either way, though, that's sort of the teams that are interested in Miller, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I don't know. It's again, I'm really leaning towards, if I was in the shoes of the GM, again, obviously depending on the offers that are made, I'm fully leaning towards moving JT Miller if the price is right. All right. There are 92 of you in here at this point in time. What I want to do is I want to gift some memberships. All right. It's 8:26. I think there's a process that you have to take to do it. So what I'm going to do, is I had the link up earlier. I hope it lets me, I really hope it lets me do it here. Let's go into here. And if I click this button, I'm going to gift, okay, I can't gift one, I have to gift 5. I want to tell you guys how to allow yourself to be gifted a membership. The problem is I don't remember how. If I remember correctly, actually, no, I don't remember at all. YouTube member gifting. Let's see if we can figure this out, because for some reason you have to opt in to receive a membership. And I want you guys to be able to opt in so you guys can be involved. You'll need to opt in by clicking allow gifts, but where? I don't know. Does anyone know how to do this? Yeah, if your wants to be eligible, you have to click opt. So maybe try, don't actually buy a membership right now, because I'm going to gift some. But try, if you click the join button, there might be a little thing that says to allow gifts or something. It's beta test only on laptops and PC. Not, that's fine. I'm gifting them. There should be a way for you guys to be open to it. I don't know. Here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to gift 5 right now. And then it should give you the option to allow gifting. And then we'll give 5 more at the end. Does that sound good? So let's run this. Let's see what happens. I've clicked the button. Thank you all for being here. Your gift is going, it says. Let's see what happens there. 5 have gone out. I don't know who they went to. I don't know how it works. There we go. Lemerson, Liam, King RJ, Quatrob. Who's the 5th? Adam. All of you. There you go. You guys are good. Now, it should have prompted you guys to allow yourself to get access or something. I don't know. I don't know how it works. You might be able to opt in now. But thank you guys. Welcome. So yeah, that was one thing I wanted to do. And we'll give 5 more at the end, the very end of the stream. So we'll get back to that. Shelvin saying, I just subbed, it cost $1.50. Yeah, I thought it was $2.99. I don't know how you got such a good deal. But unless you're in like Europe and it's like pounds, euros, maybe, I don't know currencies at this point. Unless I change the price. No, it should be $2.99 a month. That's weird. Oh, you got a 50% discount. Weird. Okay. Where were we? Do we want to talk about the draft? Let's go into, let me pull up this. Let's pull up the old spreadsheet here. Let's talk about some names that we might like in this draft. So let's go over my spreadsheet that I've got here. Again, this is consolidated rankings. I've literally stolen this chart exactly from from one of these the Montreal Canadiens blogs. I think it's Eyes on the Prize, something like that. So thank you for your information. I have copied it all into Excel so it looks prettier and we can look at some of these names. You'll notice I've put some solid lines across it. Like you'll notice, like right there, there's one, and like down there, there's another. That's sort of the gaps, sort of the tiers as per the these ranges. So let's go over what this means. Obviously, column A is the ranking. I've got 27 names in here because we're only really worried about the first round. Column B, names, pretty straightforward. Height and weight, date of birth, position, handedness, the team they played for, and what league. But these last few columns are the ones I actually care about. There is the average column, which is out of all of the rankings that they grabbed, what was their average position? For example, Shane Wright was basically first on every single board and then ninth or second on a couple of other ones. Thanks, Carol, for joining as a member. Appreciate it. This range column is basically what is the difference between their top ranking and their bottom ranking. In this example, Shane Wright was ranked 1 in a lot, and his worst ranking was 2, which basically, there's a range of 1 there, a gap of 1. For another example, Matthew Savoy, his best ranking was 3, but he has a range of 16, which means his worst ranking was 19 on one of these things. So what you'll notice, every number in this range column, once you get down to here, they're all in the double digits, right? You see like 21, Frank Nazar, he had rankings at 4, he had rankings at 25. So this is where it gets a little bit wacky. And that's why this is going to be so volatile and why it's so hard to do any real analysis on who you want to pick unless you're an entire scouting team like the Vancouver Canucks are. Because they are now picking basically, there's going to be a team that has Matthew Savoy at 3. And there's going to be another team that has him at 19, which means maybe the Canucks have him drop to 15 or something along those lines. That's where it gets really tricky. Adam with the $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. So what we want to do is we're going to pick some names. There's going to be some names that we're not going to really look at, right? Sort of this top 5, these guys will all be gone by the time the Canucks are picking. Unless they take second overall from New Jersey, which seems really unlikely. So let's just cross them off the list here. All right, I think what we want to do is basically take players who their lowest ranking was, like their average was like 10 or lower. So I'd say we can probably cut these names off too. And I'm going to say this is our sweet spot. And I'm going to make this let's put Geeky in there too. And we're going to make this our sweet spot. Let's make this, can I make it nice and green? All right. So 9 names. We're going to look at 9 names today. And we're going to figure out which ones we like the most. Now, what's funny is Lemerson comes up and says, I like Noah Ostlund. I don't have my chat box up here. 1 second. I can go back to this, grab this, and put it here. No. Paste. No. Why does it not work? Copy. Paste. There we go. So Lemerson comes up and says, I like Noah Ostlund or Liam Ogren. Well, Noah Ostlund is 24 on this list, although he is 10th on some other lists, apparently. But he's also as low as 41 on some lists. So he's below our threshold of what we're going to look at today, I guess. Murray says to do marbles with the 9 names. I really like that idea because what I think we want to do is we want to pick someone who we really like and that we're rooting for. Because at this point, I'm basically going to use this list. And if one of these guys is like falling, I'm going to hope they keep falling to the Canucks, knowing nothing about them, obviously, right? But we're going to go through, let's do a little scouting report on these 9 guys and figure out who we like. And maybe what we'll do is a little bit of like we'll find some sort of way to pick a guy that we think the Canucks are going to be able to grab at 15. Maybe we'll do a little polling or something along those lines. So let's start off with Frank Nazar, number 10 on our list. Let me pull up, and this is going to be a really simple exercise that we pull off here, folks. It is going to be Googling the player's name. We're going to go to eliteprospects.com because it has all of the rankings here. And this is what we want to look at to start. So this is Frank Nazar. What was that? Super chat, $2. Thank you, Shelvin. Shouting out Vancouver's the best city in the world. Thumbs up from that. Thank you. So Frank Nazar, this is where you see that range, right? You have consolidated ranking 10th. Elite Prospect has him at 5. FC Hockey has him at 7. Bob McKenzie has him at 15. Keep in mind, Bob McKenzie's rankings are a consolidation from NHL scouts. They are not his opinion, which is why I like Bob McKenzie's numbers a lot, because that is, that's sort of the Bible. What do the scouts actually think? McKean's at 12, but then there's some outliers, right? You have Craig Button has him at 25. There's that range we were talking about. NHL Central Scouting has him at 21, just amongst North American skaters. Some other names here, or some other ones here, like ranked 4th by Dauber Prospects. So let's take a look at Frank Nazar. Let's look at some of these stats. So he's playing in the U.S. development program. Let's pull these numbers up here. So we'll just look at we don't care that he put up 127 points in 15-year-old AAA. That's sick. That's awesome, but we don't care. So he played for the U17 team, which, he did really well, right? Over a point per game. Then he went up to the U18 team, which is basically the same because he went up a year, everyone else went up a year. Still was fantastic, right? 70 points, 28 goals, 42 assists in 56 games. And then in the juniors, for the development team, 35 points, 24 games. Then at the World Juniors, 18 under World Juniors, not the 20 and under World Juniors, 9 points in 6 games. So what's the scouting report? These should have there's a little scouting report here. So Nazar makes subtle, almost imperceptible plays at every corner of the ice to create, why is there a hyphen here? Advantages for his line mates. Little things like dragging defenders towards him on entries to create half-ice 2-on-1s, or driving the net off the puck to give his line mate more runway. So high hockey offensive IQ. Sounds good to me. I mean, he's small, 5'10", 181, so basically my size. A couple pounds heavier than me. Center, can play the right side, shoots right. I like it. I like Frank Nazar. I'm sold. All right, Frank Nazar is the player we want. Now, can we get a highlight package? Not a 25-minute one. Maybe like not that old either. I'm gonna go to this video. Oh, it's a Hawkers article. It's not a video at all. Okay. Skip this part. We don't care. All right. Frank Nazar, we like. All right. Who's next on our list? Next on our list, Danila Yurov. And what we're going to do is we're going to do an elimination here. All right. So Danila Yurov, Elite Prospects. Where do they got him? Consolidated 13, 23rd by EliteProspects.com. Now, keep in mind, Nazar was like 5th or something, but Bob McKenzie's ranking has him one higher at 14. Craig Button has him at 12. Dauber Prospects has him at 12. McKean's at 10. Basically, no one has him in the top 10, but, still big range here, right? We're talking for basically 9 to 25 down here as well. His little blurb: strong skater, proficient at reading the ice to find open space and attacking it. Nice of skill, strength, and shooting. I don't know who wrote this, to be honest. Strong skating, good puck protection, tough to handle when given space to rush down the wing. So a bit more of a power forward type from what I'm gathering here. 6'1", 180. So a couple inches taller than Nazar. Russian. Now, to me, there might be some of the scary factor around Russian players with everything going on, but for me, that just is an opportunity for value. Maybe you can pick a guy who dropped because of that a little bit. So what we're going to do, let's look at the stats first before we run this poll. Played, so he is a right winger. Keep this in mind. He's a right winger. 2020, 2021. So the year before this last one, he played 21 games in the KHL. He had 2 points. Keep in mind, we know how Russia treats young players in the KHL, right? They get no ice time. They're stuck on the fourth line. They get 4 minutes a game, right? Remember Podkolzin, for example? Went down to the MHL, 25 points in 23 games. Much more like it. Then this last year, 36 points in 23 games in the MHL. Got called up for 21 KHL games, 0 points. Then played 19 games in the playoffs. and had 0 points. So 40 KHL games this season and not a point. However, this doesn't tell us what his ice time was. Like, it just doesn't, right? It could have been 3 minutes a night. So let's run a poll. We're going to go back to our list here. Who do you like? Nazar or Yurov? And now we're going to eliminate one of these players because we are all collectively going to be rooting for the same player for the Canucks to pick tomorrow. Make your pick. Nazar best ranking was 4th, but his worst ranking was all the way down at 25. Overall average rankings basically the same, 11.33, 12.44. Who do you like more? Nazar has the early lead in this poll and runs away with it, 85% of the vote, which means we are going to eliminate Yurov from our list. Next on our list, Pavel Mintyukov. Sounds also Russian. Pavel Mintyukov. Also Russian, but playing in the Ontario Hockey League with the Saginaw Spirit this last season. He is 6'1", 192 pounds. And what you'll notice, bit of a tighter range here. Most, 7, 10, 12, 11, 11, 6, 17, 13, 9, 13, and then a couple of higher ones, 19, 26. This to me sounds like a player that the Canucks are not going to have available to them, but they could. Anything could happen at this point in the draft. The 1 and 2 touch feed were his weapons of choice. Sort of a quick passer. Use them to strike with rapier. I don't know this word. I don't know that word. Precision through any cracks in the defensive formation. When openings weren't already there, he made them. He made the openings with deceptive handling, lookoffs, and feints. So we're talking about again, high skill guy potentially here in Pavel Mintyukov. Let's look at some numbers here. Played in the MHL in Russia in 2019-20, had 3 points in 33 games, which is not great. This last year in the OHL, 62 points in 67 games. Now, that's a little scary to me because only 17 goals in your draft year in the OHL. It's really not that impressive, right? It just really isn't. He did lead his team, but under a point per game. Usually the guys that are making the NHL are quite a bit higher than a point per game. So, is he a defenseman? Oh, I'm stupid. He's a defenseman. Never mind. 62 points in 67 games is sick. That is awesome. What are you guys saying about 9th? I don't know. You guys, sorry, I didn't realize it was a defenseman because all of this was about his offensive weaponry. Okay, we are talking about a point per game defenseman in the OHL. Now, -14, that might be a little scary. Did they win that? What is this? Oh, he's on the 3rd All-Star team. Okay. -14, but point per game defensive. So offensive defenseman, 6'1", 192. So not big, but not small by any means. The Canucks use defenseman. Left shot, not ideal, but right shot defensemen are going to be at a much higher premium. But that's okay. Blitz is saying the Spirit were awful. Yeah, that's fair. Which way does he shoot? Left. So that's the next one on our list, and we're going to compare him to another left shot defenseman, Kevin Korchinski. Now, you look height and weight, near identical. We got an extra 7 pounds on Mintyukov and an extra inch of height on Korchinski. Nothing to worry about there. You can put on some muscle if you need to. So let's look up Kevin Korchinski. Kevin Korchinski, Elite Prospects. All of these rankings pretty similar, sort of the mid-10s. Like, this is where the Canucks are going to be picking, sort of the mid-10s. Bob McKenzie, which is the Scouts ranking, has him at 11. And we're talking about a very similar point total here, folks. Playing for the Seattle Thunderbirds this time, made the playoffs as well. Only 4 goals in 67 games, but he's a defenseman. That's fine. 61 assists, though. You love to see that. So 65 points, a plus 36 for the Seattle Thunderbirds. I think Seattle was... they made the finals at the very least. Don't remember if they won or not. in the WHL. And then in the playoffs, almost a point per game there as well. 19 points in 25 games with 6 goals, 13 assists, 22 penalty minutes. He was getting after it a little bit, plus 6 in the playoffs as well. So we're talking about a decent player here. Let's take a look at the... Oh, there's no spiel? Where's the blurb? How are we supposed to know anything about this guy? Oh, can I find a blurb somewhere else? All right, let's just steal from The Athletic. It's kind of long. The one thing about him is, for an elite offensive defenseman, he's got a level of fearlessness and durability that you just don't see at that age. With other offensive defensemen, sometimes they can be timid, going back for pucks and things like that. He just doesn't have that, and leaves him taking a lot of big hits, but he's got some grit and some toughness that kind of gets overlooked sometimes. He took some big hits against Edmonton and never missed a shift and just came back. He puts himself in somewhat dangerous spots, and it doesn't faze him. We've seen it with the Shea Theodores and Ty Smiths, where there's some hesitation for top WHLD at a young age. He doesn't have that. He wants the puck. He wants to go get it. That's a nice trait. That sounds like he's going to get hurt. He takes a lot of hits. He loves to get hit. He loves to just be dangerous and reckless. So offensive defenseman. Sounds good to me. But this is your time to take your vote, folks. Who do you like more? Mintyukov or Mintyukov or Korchinski? Who you like? Ask your community. Who do you guys like here between Mintyukov and Korchinski in our little bracket that we are doing? Keep in mind, picking a defenseman, they're not playing this year, right? It's going to be a little bit down the line. Early lead goes to Korchinski, 4-3 votes, but then more votes come in. We're up to 37 votes, and it is a 51-49 split, folks. We're going to wrap it right when it hits, 50 votes. So the last 8 votes are crucial here. Who you got? Mintyukov or Korchinski? 8 more votes will decide it. Korchinski takes the lead. Your vote truly counts here, folks. This is democracy. Ready to end the poll. The next wave of votes to come in. 51 votes, and it is 1 vote for Mintyukov. We'll wait for the finalization here. 50-49 on 51 votes, so 26-25. The people like Pavel Mintyukov. Now, for me, these are 2 dead even. We're gonna put neutral on these for now. We'll make him like a little yellow. This one yellow. We'll include them both, I think, at this point. Lieb likes Korchinski a lot, but hey, the people have spoken. All right, Brad Lambert's polarizing to the point where I feel like Brad Lambert deserves a poll on his own, because we have 4 more after where we can do some 1v1s. We are going to give Brad Lambert a poll on his own because he's very, very polarizing at this point. And we're going to use the Sportsnet.ca article to talk about it. Nah, it's actually way too long. Never mind. All right. Let's pull up elite prospects and let's see some fluctuation. Consolidated 14, elite prospects 14, right around where the Canucks are picking. Bob McKenzie, the scouts rankings 16. McKean's 8, Craig Button 42. Smott scouting, got to be from Boston, 5th. Dauber prospects 30th. So now you see these big swings between all of these. So that's one part of it. Now, why is he so volatile? Because he was supposed to be really high up there in this draft as of last year. Remember Vasily Podkolzin? Now, he was supposed to go 2nd or 3rd overall in his draft, above Kakko or right around there. Ended up dropping to 10. This is going to be a similar story. So he flies up and down the ice with perfect skating posture. Sounds great. Ample flexibility through his ankles, knees, and hips, and a stable upper body. His top hand is pushed out, free from his torso, and he cradles the puck at the heel of his blade with quickness and precision that most players can't match. So that's great. Excellent skater. I love that. Good puck control. Love that. Now, here's the problem. Last year, 2020-2021, he played in Liga. That's the Finnish one, right? Yeah, the Finnish men's league, basically. And he put up 15 points in 46 games, which most people thought, hey, that's a respectable number for basically a 17-year-old in a men's league, which it is. He had a decision to make whether to come to the WHL or to stay in Finland another year, and he chose to stay in Finland. Finland is a much more sort of defensive-oriented play style, apparently. And because of that, he says his defensive game has rounded out a good bit. But you'll notice the offense did not come with it. So aging up an entire year, and these are years, you look at WHL numbers and you're seeing like a doubling in points year over year at that level, right? Or maybe like an extra 70% points. You see him go 15 points in 46 games to this last year where he gets 10 points in 49 games. So 3 more games, 5 fewer points. Throw on 3 playoff games for good measure, and you have 0 points. He has all the tools, as Blitz is saying. He's got all the tools. He was really snake-bitten and was quite consistent. Definition of boom or bust. So this is where I pose the question unto you, the viewer. How risky you want to get? Because like we saw, we look at our spreadsheet here. At his peak, ranked 3rd, right? And let's pull that up here. Ranked 5th by Smot Scouting. It is crazy just saying Smot. It like immediately goes Boston, which has to be where this is based. Scouts have him at 16, ranked 9 in some places, 42 in some places. This is definition of boom or bust. So the real question is, how risky do you want to get? So I'm asking you a simple question that is coming through into your screens now, and that question is Brad Lambert ? Yes or no? Do you think at 15 that is the time to take a shot on a potentially boom or bust player? Because we're talking about a player who could be really, really good or fizzle out and maybe not make it. The votes are coming in, 29 votes so far, and it is almost a dead heat. You guys make this so difficult. 34 votes in there, 17 votes apiece. As we speak, I'll pull it onto the screen for you all. We are dead even here. 43 votes, 53 to 47. 51-49. It's too close to call. It's too close to call. It's a 1 vote difference right now. I can't make a call on that. So those last votes coming in matter. 55 votes, 53 to 47 are saying yes. We'll let one more round of votes come in. One more little refresh. 59 votes, 53 47. We're going to call it there. It's over. It's over. It's over. 53-47 say yes to Brad Lambert. Tyson's reasoning, and you know what, Tyson, I respect this reasoning. Craig Button has never made a good mock draft in his life, so I'm going to say yes. You know what, Tyson? You're correct. Button and McCarr 3rd overall. Okay, Jack. Well, thanks for ruining our joy of making fun of Craig Button. So the votes leaned yes, which means Brad Lambert continues on in our competition. Let's go to our next matchup. We have 2 more matchups to go here. Thanks for subscribing, Sid. Appreciate it. The next 2 on our list, Marco Kasper and Denton Mateychuk. All right. Now, it surprises me to see Marco Kasper here because I genuinely think Marco Kasper is probably gone at this point. But we can take a look. Marco Kasper. And then who's our other one? Denton Mateychuk. We'll start off on Elite Prospects. as we do. We got some early Caspers in the chat, but we'll see. So all of the ratings pretty reasonable here. 12th by Elite Prospects, 10th by the Scouts, featuring Bob McKenzie, 17th by Craig Button, 8th by Sportsnet, 18th by Dauber Prospects, 19th by the Puck Authority. So in that 10 to 20 range for the most part, where the Canucks are picking. He is Austrian. He's a 6'2" centerman, left-handed, 18 years old, of course, from Innsbruck, Austria. Let's take a look at the blurb. A long blurb here in this one. I should have just got the draft guide. That would have been I should have paid for it. People saying no shot. He's at 15. Hey, you never know. You never know. Weird things happen. All right. So let's take a look here. 2 years ago, 10 games in the Swedish league, 1 point. That's fine. This last year, he played the entire season basically in the Swedish Hockey League. 46 games played, 7 goals, 4 assists, 11 points. So pretty low on point totals, but it's not the WHL, right? It's the Swedish Hockey League. It's a men's hockey league. 6 points in 13 games though in the playoffs, which probably has raised his draft stock a fair chunk at the very least. And then let's compare that to Denton Matichuk. Going to be a tough comparison because we're talking about a centerman compared to a defenseman. Denton Matichuk, a 5'11", 194, so a stocky defenseman. Looking good in the flying V, though, up here. Woo! Love that. From Winnipeg, Manitoba. Consolidated ranking 15th overall. Elite Prospect has him at 8. So, you know, people saying there's no way that Casper's going to be there. There's some rankings that have this guy pretty high up, too. Craig Button at 24. The Scouts at 24 as well. So let's do the blurbs. Caspers, he's physical and capable along the boards, even in terms of manipulation. He recognizes the angle of defenders coming at him and knows how to beat them and escape them. He passes to the right areas, knows the next logical play in the offensive progression. He goes to the net hard and often and with purpose. I love that. To screen, rebound, and score. He has good first touches, takes them inside when possible, and leads to the next play. So a guy who's willing to go to the net. Denton Matichuk, constant motion allows Matichuk to break from his team's structure in the offensive zone and seek opportunities that just aren't there for other defensemen. He prods for soft ice, he finds it, and sometimes his entrance into that space at the best possible moment for a shooting opportunity or a chance to hit his teammate elsewhere with a perfectly weighted pass for a chance of their own. This is such a long sentence. He's the cousin of Owen Pickering. Interesting. So let's look at stats. Casper, we obviously mentioned, 11 points in 46 games. Matichuk, a defenseman, point per game in the WHL, including 13 goals for Moose Jaw. So 13 goals, 51 assists for 64 points in 65 games. He was a plus 20 point per game in the playoffs as well. 1 goal, 9 assists for 10 points. There's all of your info. Who Casper versus Matichuk. I think I know where you guys are going to go on this, but this is a democracy. We have to allow you all to make your selection here. So this is your time. We'll see how much of a blowout this ends up being. Casper, 30 votes in, has a big lead and basically no path back for Matichuk, which means Matichuk gets eliminated from our board. All right, and then our final battle between Liam Ogren and Connor Geekie. Liam Ogren, consolidated ranking about 19th versus 20th for Connor Geekie, but both have had a ranking in the top 10, and that's why I cut it off here, basically, was sort of at this 8 mark of the best. So let's look up Liam Ogren. Liam Ogren, Connor Geekie. Elite Prospects. All right. Liam Ogren, 18-year-old left winger, shoots left from Stockholm, Sweden. Swedish connection. We like the Swedes here. Rankings are kind of middling and mostly high. Consolidated 17. Elite Prospects has him higher up at 13. Bob McKenzie's Scouts ranking has him at 21. Craig Button at 18. Sportsnet at 23. Dauber Prospects at 14. So kind of lower. Everything happens in motion for Ogren. He gets moving as pucks arrive at his position. He skates through his passes, doesn't need to break stride to get off his shot. He plays at such a heightened pace that the puck often flies from his stick no sooner than you realize he's even secured possession in the first place. Let's look at some stats. This year, he split his time between the under 20 squad and the men's league squad, the SHL squad. SHL numbers, nothing special. 2 points in 25 games for Djurgårdens. I'm going to guess that is pronounced. But in his under 20 league, which, might be like a lower tier WHL or something along those lines, 58 points in 30 games, including 6 and 6 in the playoffs. Keep in mind, he was on the 20 under team, not the 18 under team, which is nice, I guess. And then let's look at Connor Geekie. Connor Geekie is a 18-year-old big centerman, 6'4", 205 pounds, left-handed Canadian kid from Strathclair, Manitoba. Rankings 18, 17, 13, sort of in the same range. I would say the rankings are a wash in this case. That's why we're comparing them here. Played in the WHL this last year as a center, big center, put up 70 points in 63 games. Now, personally, when I see 6'4", 205-pound man in a junior league putting up a lot of points, that doesn't do much for me because there's a size advantage that you lose when you get to the NHL. There's still a bit of that advantage, but I feel like it's much more impactful at these lower leagues. But again, this is a democracy. We'll leave it up to you a bit here. What was his spiel? Didn't have a spiel, so you guys are on your own for that. Let's look between more Ogren and Geeky. We are asking the people who you like. We will eliminate one, which will get us down to 5. Our top 5. Our top 6 basically for this draft. Ogren off to an early lead and probably enough to just take it. So Liam Ogren's going to be our pick. So let's X out this guy. All right. Now we've got all these guys left, and we need to pick our favorite. We need to stack rank them, really, is kind of what we need to do. But now I realize we've crossed out names in the middle and it doesn't work all that well. And I probably did this poorly. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So from what I've seen and from the way that these votes have gone, I mean, this is kind of our rankings, right? In basically this order. So I think as a group, we have determined that this list is going to be our Bible for the draft tomorrow because there were no upsets. We always picked the higher tier guy. Brad Lambert's maybe the iffy one here. But I would say this is going to be our Bible for tomorrow. We're going to look at basically all these names here and say anything in here we're pretty happy with. Sound fair? I think that's fair. All right. That's I don't know what else. I guess now we just get to Q&A. Cuz I think we've sort of discussed all of the people in that Canucks range. So now is a chance. We're going to take maybe 10 minutes or so of some Qs. If you guys have any questions, keep in mind 4 p.m. tomorrow we will be live with live NHL Draft coverage for the entire first round unless it goes past 7. If it goes past 7, then I will be stopping early because I have a hockey game. But that's like the one limiting factor. So basically from 4 to 7 tomorrow, we will be live. We will be here. Make sure you subscribe with notifications on. And I'm going to, we'll be gifting a few more members here before we wrap up for the evening. Jaden says, who'd you like to see the Canucks pick? Jaden, we're going by the Bible. Whoops. Woo, there we go. We're going by our Bible here. I want everything in this order. One person up here drops. I want them. I want this to be, this is my order. This is my list. I trust the consolidated rankings, and whoever the Canucks pick, I will watch 5 minutes of tape on and fall in love with them anyways, so doesn't really matter all that much. Let's go back to here. Sean asks, what's your preferred return for a Miller trade? It's so tricky because we're talking about a handful of teams that could be involved, and we don't know what's even being rumored, right? You know, we hear the Kako rumors for JT Miller, and that's, as part of the piece, or whether it's New Jersey, the second overall pick, which seems unlikely, or Jesper Bratt, which seems even more unlikely. For me, a preferred return is a bounty of young talent, either one excellent piece or a couple, good pieces, that will have good value in the future. I genuinely don't have like a preferred, like you say, Nachas, Morrow, and a first. That seems like a lot, right? Nachas is really good, isn't he? Unless I've just heard his name a bunch and I'm biased towards him. And yeah, Nachas is a 40-point center, right-handed center. Yeah, it's a need the Canucks have for sure. But it's a 23-year-old center who's going to be an RFA. He's going to need a contract. But a player I definitely wouldn't hate to see the Canucks go pick up. That's for sure, but it just seems like a lot. Vince saying, if the Canucks end up trading down to 22 or 28, who do you think they select, or better, who would you take? Here's the thing, Vince. Looking through these 9 names was hard enough. All right. Again, I'm going to use the Bible. So the best player available on this list, if it happens to be Yuri Kulich, if it happens to be, Noah Ostlund, whoever the best player on this list is, that's what I'm going to lean towards. But I genuinely don't have enough knowledge on sort of that last half. I spent all my time focusing on the guys in the 10 to 20 range because that's probably who the Canucks are going to take. But if they trade down, all bets are off for me. Sharm said, should we approach the JT Miller situation like how the Avs handled the Duchesne one? Feels like the Duchesne, JT's not in the long-term plans either when we become a true contender. Well, if they sign him to a 6-year deal, he sure is in the long-term plans, which is what the rumored offer on the table is. If that Duchesne trade was highway robbery for the Colorado Avalanche, like they got so much value for Matt Duchesne that if the Canucks could get close to that, sure, yeah, do it, right? But you're not gonna get what they got for Duchesne because it was such a steal. If we compare it to the Fiala trade where they got a young defensive prospect who looks like he's going to be an NHLer and a first-round pick along with it, that's a good starting spot, right? I'd genuinely not be too upset with that because the return is one thing, but also not being tied to a long-term JT Miller contract into when he's 37, 38 years old. That's a big win in itself that, the value is extra on top. It's sweetener at this point. People saying Nate just had a down year and was an RFA. Yeah, he definitely did have a down year. Went from 41 points, 53 games to 40 points in 78 games. But that's fine. Everyone has a down year. I'm not too concerned. He seems like a pretty good player. Justin saying, general thoughts on the schedule so far. I did kind of look at it because I was looking at, maybe potential trips or something. There is a really big trip to start the season, which I mean can really hinder a team, but it can also be might be the best time to have a road trip. But the Buffalo opener seems weird. That is a little bit weird. You normally you'd think it would be like a Calgary or an Edmonton or Seattle or something along those lines. Zach saying, do you think people are delusional on the return they're expecting for 1 year of JT Miller? No, I don't. Because if you look at what a 99-point player is worth on a rental at the trade deadline for a team to get a player for 20 games and then have no guarantee of re-signing him after, that's, there's a lot of value in those. See, Tyler Toffoli, for example. And it happens every year, right? You see sort of decent players going for first round picks at the trade deadline every year. That's for 20 games plus the playoffs. Well, now you're saying, hey, you can get a guy who's only making 5.25 this year. So super undervalued contract, which means you have a lot of cap flexibilities, excellent piece to sort of add to your team. And most of these deals, you have to think, Zach, are looming on. There's going to be teams that are going to look for this trade with an extension already pre-written up, right? It'll be one of those things where they say, hey, we'll trade for JT Miller if you let us talk to him and work out what an extension might look like. So we can go into this trade knowing, okay, we're going to make this trade, and as of July 13th, when we can officially extend him, we're going to sign him for 6 years times $7.5, $8 million, whatever that number is. It is going to be lower value if a team is just picking him up as a pure rental. But if a team is picking him up with aspirations of extending him and they can work that out before the trade is even done, then that return is going to be a lot bigger than if not. Bruce says, if the Canucks did get second overall somehow, who would you like the most? I'm basically between Wright and Slafkovsky. That's sort of my two. You know, Cooley's obviously up there as well, and sort of those three all flip between the number one pick between everyone. So again, I'd sort of trust the judgment of whoever drops. I think Shane Wright's going first, though. If not, though, it would be Shane Wright. Let's see here. BW Hockey says, what should the Canucks do with Jason Dickinson? Should they keep him and hope he turns out next season to a solid third line center, or attempt to trade him and dump the contract? Jason Dickinson, in my mind, has negative value at this point, especially after last year. He just didn't click, and there was no signs like late in the season of a turnaround or anything. It just didn't work. And he makes 2.65 for another 2 years, something along those lines. That's a contract you're better off without. Because we're talking about basically a fourth line center at this point, and you can pick up decent ones for $1.5 million. So if there is any team that is willing to take a shot on Jason Dickinson, saying, okay, well, he had a down year last year, we're willing to trade sort of a late round pick for him. I think if the Canucks can get rid of him just to shed the cap space and do something else with it, I think that would be well advised. Jaden's saying, I'm hoping that teams don't notice that JT refuses to backcheck. We're still talking about a 99-point player, right? I don't care who backchecks if they're getting 99 points, right? he more than makes up for it on the offensive side. And he has emotional moments, but that's fine. Clone says, how about retaining half salary to maximize the Miller return? Basically a 99-point player for, in this, it'd be about 2.67, I guess. Yeah, do it. If it adds more return, sure, why not? Because imagine being a team looking to pick up a player of JT Miller's caliber and only have to pay him 2.7 for the entire year. That's absurd. Knox for Life saying, should we replace Miller with Malkin? Obviously, I think he's going to be way too expensive, but it would be sick. It would be sick. Justin saying that the Pens supposedly offering him 2 years at $6 million per, but Malkin wants 4. If the Canucks could get him for 2 years at $6 million per, I'd sign me up. But again, probably pretty unlikely. All right, folks, it's 9:13. We were only going to go till 9. We're going to wrap up. But before we do that, I'm going to throw a few more memberships out there into the crowd. 5 more incoming. Let's do that. Guys, hit the subscribe button while you're here. Hit like. How many likes are we at? We're at 43 likes. When we hit 50 likes, I'll drop they're at 46 now, maybe 55 likes, and I'll drop those memberships in. Make sure you're subscribed for the draft coverage tomorrow, 4 p.m. sharp. Have your notifications on. Do all that stuff. You guys know the drill. Let's throw... I can't do it on this link. I got to go to YouTube Studios. Let me do it. I got to go into YouTube, click on my video, do that, gift memberships, membership gifting, 5 memberships coming out at random. I don't know how it distributes them. Good luck. Here they come. Here they go. There they go. Who's getting them? Who's it going to be? Here they come. There's the 5. The names will pop up. Fishby, Steve Malahara, Patrick J. Adams, Andrew Chang, and Josh Giesbrecht. Congratulations on the memberships. Thank you guys for sticking around. I hope you guys have enjoyed this stream, and we'll be back tomorrow. It's going to be a big one. I mean, if this one got 150 people in here at one point, tomorrow's going to be huge. Really looking forward to it. I will see you all there. Have a good night. See you next time.